Welcome back to the second of our two core learning videos in week number 4, where we're looking at group dynamics. And as I said, we were sort of just looking at these areas here on management and consequences of the concerns-based adoption model. Now we're looking at the stage called collaboration. How can I relate what I'm doing to what others are doing? And refocusing. I have some ideas about something that would work even better. This corresponds, as I was saying earlier, quite nicely with the stages of group development when we're moving out of storming into norming and performing, and high levels of performing where we start to innovate. We realize a nice interdependence, and also corresponds nicely to the types of questions one's asking when they're in that level of mastery, that articulated competency. So a little bit of a shift within this same frame is, what are the behaviors that correspond to each level of use within an innovation or change? So again, we're going to look at the bottom and we're going to work our way up this ladder, if you like. Corresponding to that other stage, if I go back to awareness, here we're looking at non-use, no interest, taking no action. All right. Orientation, taking the initiative to learn more about the innovation. Again, a correspondence to that place of humility, on the competency ladder, Gordon's ladder, where we begin to realize, there might be some things I need to know here. Not quite sure what I'm going to do about going, getting to that, but I'm beginning to be aware. Orientation. Then we're moving into preparation. Definite plans to begin using the innovation. That starts to set us into this implementation dip with regards to learning something new. Similarly, mechanical. We're making changes to better organize. It feels perhaps a bit awkward. Many people say when they're learning new skills, even in terms of beginning to incorporate some of what we're talking about in our work during this learning journey on facilitation, it feels artificial. It's not flowing like I'm used to. Right? Then we move into routine. Few or no changes. We have an established pattern. That's kind of echoing these areas of unconscious competency on autopilot. And then when we're looking at refinement, integration, and renewal, we're into that mastery refining place. So these two charts are a way for you to be able to diagnose what might be some of the interventions you would need to take, or how would you need to design for if in fact what you're facilitating are changes. Group roles, our third dynamic that we're going to look at. And this is a link to, and also you'll have a chance to look at it in the actual haiku, of the classic article that was written by Kenneth Bennett and Paul Sheets in the 1940s. In it, they defined 26 group rules that could be assumed by one or more people in a group, and that might serve as an unspoken individual or group need. And so this article was seminal in helping us understand what people do in groups. What is it that they actively, consciously take on? What is it that we as facilitators and group leaders would want them to take on? And then more implied, less consciously, what are those individual or group needs that are being served by people assuming roles? So the first are task roles. They help us get the work done. And the article that you'll read will list many of these and give descriptions. So when we go right back again to week 1, where I gave you the definition of facilitation from ICA, Intercultural Affairs, they were beginning to differentiate between task, the work that is supposed to be done, and process, the people that are doing the work and how they're doing that. So this then gets us into maintenance, personal, and our social roles. They have to do with process. They have to do with the roles that people assume to contribute to the effective, positive functioning of the group so that they can achieve their task or outcomes. And then thirdly, we have dysfunctional and or individualistic rules. And these rules can disrupt group progress and weaken its cohesion. Um, Examples of that might be the people who are always coming late or the people who are distractors. I think of people who are the jokers in a group, and you see in some ways, at some instances, they can provide the important relief, just create sort of that comedic relief. But if that goes on unchecked, you can see that the joker can end up distracting the group from the work it's intending to do. Again, I'm going to refer you back to the article so that you've got lots of examples and fuller descriptions than what I'm able to do in the time we have here. Finally, our last dynamic, resistance. And you'll see we're calling it understanding and using it well. In terms of, you would have taken a look at my stance with facilitation, and while I maybe didn't speak about this directly, implied was I think resistance is a gift. It's naturally occurring, it's going to be there, and rather than avoid or pretend that it doesn't exist or begin to get defensive and therefore run the risk that we become a little bit confrontational, we need to see it much in the same way that we understand conflict. That in this way, it's the indirect expression of real concerns that might be precipitated by novelty, anxiety, feeling coerced or manipulated, and even it has to do with the facilitator's anxiety. And this is a real critical piece to consider. That's why when we go back to the interior condition, as we did when we were looking at competencies, the preparation that one takes as a facilitator, a lot of it has to do with becoming aware of, acknowledging, and keeping in check our own anxiety. Because if we disregard that, it can unwittingly create resistance in the group. So what we want to do is make resistance direct and thereby accessible to work with. So we want to reframe resistance from something bad to a gift that signals concern, something that we need to pay attention to, right? We want to presume positive intention in the resistant person. So rather than, saying this might be this dysfunctional, difficult person in our group, what might be going on? What might be the positive intention that we may need to explore or even ask into? We want to begin with a good faith response, treating their reactions as totally legitimate. We want to name the resistant behavior by simply describing it. It looks like, whenever we get into something, I'm noticing that you end up cracking a joke. And while that gives us all a bit of a relief, I'm wondering if that might be indicative of, or to even ask the group. And you need to take the risk, as facilitators, we need to take the risk to realize that the difficult conversation is the right conversation. And to trust in our own innate wisdom and respect for ourselves and others to let go of the need of having to defend ourselves. We want to maintain the intention to cultivate goodwill. And this is when we take on and invite the resistance, it is a tremendous opportunity to model to the group all of those behaviors and competencies regarding diversity, care, respect, inviting difference in. What it is a demonstration that we care enough to hear what needs to be said, quite simply. And again, we want to examine our own resistance always in terms of, are we unwittingly amplifying the groups? In response to anxiety that's precipitated by novelty, and I mentioned that, I did a little bit of foreshadowing with that in an earlier week, Again, the things that we can do in the stages of group development, that's where I had mentioned it, was to welcome and quickly establish our credibility as facilitators, and to give people an overview as to what's going to happen and what their role is. Different things that we can do to de-stress people by greeting them, playing background music, adjusting the lighting, providing refreshments, creating an attractive space and learning, and using people's names. Name tags. While everybody in the group may know each other, if you don't, that might be handy for you to have name tags and to say, it's so that I know and can address you personally. Another thing that we can do is we can post a warm-up question as people are convening so that they have something that they can begin to talk about or reflect on. And thereby what we're doing is we're activating higher brain functions and as opposed to the lower limbic functions which start to respond to and trigger the fight or flight response. Groupings. What I like to do really is let people sit where they'd like, and I assign groupings during the activities so that again people are comfortable and I'm not inadvertently triggering that primitive limbic brain, its tendency to territorialize. Okay, so nice ways to be able to respond to that novelty resistance. Another way of looking at resistance, I really enjoyed this, was this visual sort of representation of a pyramid and a way of understanding successive levels of resistance. That basically what this is saying is that the quicker we're able to identify, acknowledge, and resolve at lower levels, it reduces some of the more complicated resistance at the higher levels. So not knowing, again, kind of relating to novelty anxiety. It's overcome with how we intentionally invite, welcome, design, and implement ways to relax that fight or flight response. We're explicit, overt communication, we look at surfacing assumptions, we clarify expectations, concerns, and why our reason is the purpose for our gathering. The next level, the middle level, is not able. It's when people are feeling not able to participate, not able to learn, to fulfill an activity, and it's usually overcome with encouragement, teaching, modeling, coaching people new skills. And then finally, the unwilling or not willing, again, that's at that top, that's the more difficult level, overcome with knowledge and skills, and time. Time to grieve with what's ended or with what's over. So the interesting thing is, with regards to resistance, is how much, again, might we be coming in with our own resistance to amplify this, but knowing that different people will be coming into a group experience at different places, and that's where your good observation and sensing the energy, the body language, the nonverbals of people in the group will help you. So once again, we're almost out of time here in terms of the 15-minute allotment. I'm going to invite you now, after having watched both these videos, to visit the next stops along this learning journey on group dynamics. There are a couple of articles for you to read to go into a little bit more depth on those group roles and resistance. And at the end, again, you'll be composing your post that you'll put online to activate our online conversation, and you'll have a chance to read and respond to the posts of two of your traveling companions. Again, remember, we conclude this leg of our learning journey on Saturday, and I will be seeing you shortly for the fifth and final leg where we're looking at process and protocols. Thank you.